Alright, welcome to my game table. We are looking at Panzer and we're going to go over the spotting rules. I'm hoping to give a more complete picture of the spotting rules and how spotting works, to cover basic rules, advanced rules, and touch on the optional rules. Just touch on the optional rules. Now, I've got out some pieces here on the map board. I've got a couple Russian units, a German unit, and for the basic rules, that's all you need. Basic rules, you're just using the vehicles, so that makes spotting very easy. After you get your units out, the other thing you need is chart A, card A. And up in the corner of card A, there is a spotting ranges table. Since we're doing just vehicles in the basic game, we use the V column. So everything's going to be on the V column. And if there's no modifiers whatsoever, vehicles can be spotted out to 20 hexes. This is an important part of the game because you cannot assign fire orders unless a vehicle is spotted. And spotting is the very first phase of a turn. So the way spotting works is you just simply look at your two units, and for this purpose I'm going to pretend there are no blocking line of sight items. Let's just pretend I'm looking at a flat map. So you count your distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's well within the 20 that I'm allowed for vehicles if there's no modifier. These two vehicles see each other and they can shoot at each other. Now, if you want to have some advantages, say protection from being shot, then you need to place your vehicle into some cover. So what we're going to do is take a look at an example of my vehicle here in some woods and kind of see what that looks like. So let's just say I've got the German vehicle in woods. Now what I got to do is just take a quick glance at card A once again, go to the terrain effects. I'm going to run down here to the woods section, and there's woods, woods heavy, woods light. I just run across to the cover modifier and it offers medium cover. So from there I look at the same chart. I've got various modifiers that will affect my spotting ranges, and most of these are covered in the basic rule, and then the rest are covered in the advanced rules. There's one for the optional rules. We'll cover that here in a minute. But essentially, I'll just look and say, well, medium cover is a shift of 2 on the chart. So these -2s is not like hexes, it's just how many rows down you move on the chart. So wood says -2, I go down to the -2 column, I run across to V, and that says 7. So if I'm looking at my two example vehicles here, because I'm in woods, the Russian player would have to be 7 hexes away to see. And since I forgot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The Russian player could not see the German player because he's in the woods, but the German player can still see the Russian player. So that's why terrain becomes so important to your maneuvering aspects, is how to protect your vehicles. And that's one excellent way to protect your vehicles, is this will allow me to shoot, but not be shot at immediately. So I could issue a fire order for my German vehicle, but I would have to issue a move order or something else to the Russian vehicle. So now then, let's come up with an example of some different things that could happen here. I've got another vehicle, so I'm going to place both of these. Let's say I've issued my German player a fire order. Now, one thing, a question that's come up is, well, let's say my German unit fired. I mark him with a spot counter. That's what these are for. It has a fire side and a move side. If the unit moves, I put the move side forward because that will affect if it's seen. If it fires, I put the fire side towards the front of the unit to indicate that it fired and is eligible for spotting. So let's say I have spotted and this Russian player had a move order. And let's say he actually moves within that 7 hexes. Doesn't mean anything until the next spotting phase. These spotting phase markers stay with the unit until it's not needed anymore. So a couple reasons why it might not be needed. Let's say my Russian player moves and we complete all the phases of a turn. Turn is over. The next turn starts. The very first thing of the next turn is the spotting phase. Well, that marker is still there, so now I would recalculate spotting ranges. We're now within range. The Russian player is close enough to see the German unit. I could now issue a fire order or a short halt or something like that. At the point where this vehicle is now officially spotted for gameplay purposes, it would be safe to remove the spot marker. Another way that you could remove the spot marker is, let's just say the next turn comes and we're at the spot phase, and these two vehicles are still out of range of the firing units. Since technically at that point nobody can see the German player, you could also remove the spot marker. So there's nothing that says at the end of a particular phase or turn that you have to remove the spot marker. Just only remove it if something causes a spot check and nobody can see it. Then you could go ahead and remove the spot marker. It's not needed. The other time you don't need a spot marker is in the basic rules. Let me just find the page. It's like page, if I remember, 816, I think. Hold on. Almost need glasses. It's actually on page 12. All right, page 12 of your rule book, section 4.1.5. If it is determined that a vehicle is not spotted, remove any spot fire or spot move counters it may have. In many cases, it may not be necessary to mark all vehicles that fired or moved with spot counters, as the spotting ranges may be obvious. For example, vehicles located in clear terrain. This should help keep the map board a little tidier. So there may be situations where it is seen and you can just remove it because they're well within range. So if both of these were out in the open, there's no reason to place or keep the fire spot move marker on there because they're well within range of seeing each other because they're not in any kind of terrain. So you don't need the spot marker. So the spot marker, just think of it as just an aid, a player aid, just to help you be aware of the fact that this did an action that could allow it to be seen on a future turn. Another example of where this fire marker is going to be important is, let's put them back in the woods. Let's see here. I've got a couple different things that we could do here. I'm going to say I've got one unit over here marked for Overwatch, one unit over here marked for move, and let's say I've got my German unit marked for Overwatch. Now, normally I wouldn't see the orders because they'd be flipped over to their command side. But let's just say a sample situation that could come up. If initially this Russian unit was out of range, that's why I had to give him the move order, and he decides to move, then one of the things that you can do with Overwatch is, in response to somebody moving, is you could use your Overwatch to fire. Overwatch would be a different video. Now, my Overwatch unit fires. I mark him with a fire order, but then I mark him with the spot marker for firing. Rule-wise, technically, the unit that just moved and was fired at, even though he is now well within range of this unit that fired, let's just say, let's back it up, let's look at the chart. Okay, I had to be within 7 hexes, so let's say I moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's say he's 8 away. And let's say his movement ends right here. 7 hexes is still not close enough to see this unit in the woods. But if I fire, if we look at the modifier, I have a positive, a penalty essentially to my spotting. It says here that if I do a spot fire, I have to move up the chart 3 spots to see how many hexes I can be noticed. So for example, if I'm in the woods at -2 and I do a spot fire, which has a +3, I got to move up 3, 1, 2, 3 to the +1 side, I could now be spotted up to 30 hexes away. Alright, so let's see how that works. So even though the Russian unit moved, Under normal circumstances, at 8 hexes away, he still can't be seen. But the German unit fires, marked with a fire spot counter. He's increased his range to 30 hexes. Even though this guy could see him, there's really nothing he can do because he's already been given the order for movement. He can't fire back or anything like that. However, let's just say that I've got a unit over here, the Russian unit. This one in reserve was marked as Overwatch. Now, he can fire in response to the firing done over on this side. That's what makes it great. That's how you can do your protective movement, your bounding movement, is as this unit moves forward, draws him to fire, which increases his spot range. This unit is now well within the 30 hexes. To see him, he can now overwatch fire in return. So that's another cool thing about Overwatch, is it just can trigger off each other, different circumstances that happen. So even though this guy normally couldn't be seen unless you're 7 hexes away, because he fired, he is now seen, and enemy units can react to them if they're in the proper posture. If we carry over into the next turn, so let's say the turn is over, we remove the different orders, leave the spot fire marker until you check for spotting. That's the spotting phase. So, because we know that he can now be seen out to 30 hexes away, we're well within 30 hexes, it's safe to remove the spot counter. It's not needed anymore. That's when you could remove it. So again, it's not, you hit turn 2 or something like that, you just automatically remove it. It stays on there until it's no longer needed. Now you would be able to issue your different fire orders properly because he is now seen. And if there was any confusion, this is probably the part that might confuse some folks is, well, he's still in woods, I still need to be within 7 hexes. You just got to remember the particular unit, he was spotted because he fired. He just doesn't disappear because you remove the spot marker. We know he's there. We saw him. He was spotted. What's going to protect him now is the defense value of the woods, not the fact that he's hidden. So if you needed to, just again as a play aid reminder, just leave the spot marker there to know how he was spotted. Okay, because he fired. Just a play aid reminder. And that is essentially the basic rules right there for the basic game. Now, let's talk a little bit about the advanced rules. The advanced rules pretty much carry on those same basic concepts. But with the advanced game, we also can add some infantry to the game. And I didn't pull out one of my artillery pieces, but we also have artillery. And I've got this turret top. I'll pretend is artillery. Just go with it. Alright, so when you look at your chart, your spotting ranges chart, the chart is used exactly the same way, except your infantry and the different artillery type pieces, for example, artillery, they come in different sizes. And the way that you determine the size is you look at your data card. On the data card, down here in the defensive information section, there's a spot called size. And for example, the German 8.8 centimeter flat gun is size L. I have here a Russian 57 millimeter. It is size S. So you could think of that as size small, size large. Then I've got infantry. Infantry has sizes of S or L. Generally speaking, though, leg units are S. On the back side, those are specific weapons. Then you have just a regular vehicle. Now, if you look down here, the size, this is where it gets a little, where you might say, well, that doesn't make sense. It has a size of -1. What the heck is that? That is the size of the vehicle for determining your AP combat. So that's why you just need to remember that all tanks, armored vehicles are going to use the V column. So you use the chart the same way. It's just that now You add either L or S depending on how they're declared on the data card. So for example, if it's an L out in open hexes, they can be seen up to 15 hexes away. S, for example, your infantries, they can be seen in open hexes up to 10 hexes away. But if you start sticking those infantry in the woods, they're going to be very difficult to see. I would apply my -2 medium cover, so I'd come down to infantry in woods could be spotted up to 3 hexes away. So infantry, they really know how to hide. So small units really get hidden away. There are some other things now that we get to add that affect your ability to be seen or the ability to see. One thing that we've got is we can stick our infantry into full cover. So that's very nice. What they do is they say, in addition to being in the woods, they can stick a turn burying themselves even deeper into full cover. And now, when I look at my chart, I look at full cover spotting is -4. So I would have to come down 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now they have to be people have to be 1 hex away in order to spot them. So not too much added in terms of the advanced game. Just make sure that you're using the correct column based on the size of the item that you're targeting. Make sure that you're applying any appropriate new modifiers. For example, you have the option, some of your units, they use small arms fire when they attack, not necessarily their full size units. So when you place a spot move marker for firing, instead of placing the fire at the forefront, they said you could just kind of put the marker on its side. I know you can't see it, but put the fire so that one of the blank sides is forward, and that would help you indicate that it was a small arms firing, because it has a slightly different modifier on the chart. Some other things that will affect you is if you are also in full cover. Your infantry, not only are they harder to see, oh, you know, I read that wrong. I did it backwards. Let's look back here at the chart. Okay, if the target is in full cover, it's a -2 penalty, not a -4. Quick correction there. So if my target is in full cover, they get -2 shifts. But for people who are in full cover spotting outside, they have a -4. That's the -4. So what does that mean? That means if I've got my infantry marked as being in full cover, in order for him to spot out, he automatically has to come down that spot chart by 4 rows. What that means is they don't want to be seen, and they don't want to risk anyone seeing them if they poke their heads out to look around. So they're hidden really well. Another thing that will modify your ability to spot is if you're suppressed or not. So here I've got a suppression token. So if you're suppressed, whether it's on or off, they've got a spot right here, suppressed spotting, -2. Because you're being shot at, you're ducking for cover a little bit, it's difficult for you to spot because you're trying not to be shot. Then in some more of the advanced rules, there's broken spotting, there's illumination, bonus, limited spotting. So just some different rules that will affect your ability to spot as you add those elements to the game. But as far as just basic and advanced, they're both very, very similar. Advanced just adds infantry and other sized vehicles. You just have to use the appropriate column on your chart, V, L, or S. One thing about some of the optional rules, they actually have right down here an optional rule spotting chart, which then becomes more a matter of a percent chance to hit. It's not hit, but a percent chance to see. It's not automatic. So for example, if you're like a veteran unit, what they have is you still have to check the spotting range. And then it says up here there's 2 numbers given. So for example, the veteran has a 80, 60, and if you do the first number is up to half of the spotting range, that's your percent chance to see. Then the second number past that slash is from half, greater than half, up to max your spotting range. So basically, it's just adding a percentage chance to see what you're doing. So if you had somebody who was, 10 hexes away and that's half the spotting range, a veteran unit would need basically an 80% chance to see the target. So it just makes it a little more difficult to see things. So it's just adding flavor to the story. Just because you know that they're in the woods doesn't mean that you spot that exact unit. You might know they're there, but you're not sure. So you roll the percentile, and then you're thinking, if you fail the roll, then it's like, oh, whoops, I thought something there, could have been shadows, and then you're stuck to just placing your move orders. Then eventually, as you advance even further, you got your optional rule for turrets. Turrets can be either buttoned or closed. Now, I'm not going to go, too much more into the spotting for turrets, but if you're buttoned up, that means it's closed. Then your spotting would be limited to pretty much your forward arc of your vehicle, and then you've got another penalty for that button spotting -1. So even in your buttoned up vehicles. Also, when you got a unit suppressed, not full cover, suppressed, let's say they're suppressed, they're also limited to spotting their forward hex. So that's why things like the GP fire are really good. GP fire, depending on what you're using it against, doesn't always mean you're going to kill something when you do effective GP fire. A lot of times you might be able to score a suppression, which is good because one thing I did not cover is where you can spot. Spotting is a 360-degree angle. Under normal circumstances, you can spot in any direction. So if you put that slap of suppression on them, now they're limited to their forward arc. That would mean you could swing stuff around to the sides and the back, and they wouldn't be spotted. So tactics. So in your basic game, there's some things that make it very easy, but as you add some complexity to it, you get a lot more tactical options, whether you're attacking or defending. That's pretty much it on spotting. I think maybe one other thing though to mention is units hand off. That's about it. So and that's more a line of sight type of thing too. Spotting will help, but basically if I see an enemy unit, I hand that, if you will, targeting data off to all friendly units. So everybody knows where he's at. They still might not be able to see it, but they do know it's there. Other than that, I think we've covered it a little bit better this time. So if you have any more questions about spotting or more comments to add, go ahead, post them below in the comments and we'll talk about spotting. I know that the first video might not have explained it as in-depth, but I'm hoping this clears it up a little bit more. If not, let me know. I don't mind making more videos if I have to. Next up, I don't have an idea of what video will be next, but if there's something you want to see specifically, you can mail me, send me a message on the YouTube or on the Board Game Geek, or just post it in the comments, and we'll put together a video for a particular set of rules that you want to discuss. But I'm hoping this has been thorough enough for spotting. And with that, we'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you for watching.